Welcome, everyone. We are on our own today. Our normal insightful accountant host, Gary, is out of the office enjoying some graduation time with his family. So I will just give everyone a minute or so to hop on here and get settled, and then we will kick off the webinar for today. Thank you for being here. If this is your first Tax Talk, welcome. If you've been following along the series, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you being here. Today's topic is going to be on building tax planning services in your practices. I don't have any exciting and fun questions of the day that Gary normally asks while we are waiting to fill some space here and let everybody hop on, but definitely enjoying some quieter time right now, pre-tax planning for Q2 here in a couple of weeks, and pre-extension season, as we've started lovingly referring to it as. Okay, so I'll just do a couple pieces of housekeeping before we get started. Today's session is only 30 minutes long, so we do not offer CPE for this session. We're just going to hopefully give you a quick little little lunch break, and get some education in for you. If you are not following along with the whole series, you can feel free to register and subscribe right on the Tax Practice News website. I'll put up a link in just a minute. You will get copies of the slides sent out after the webinar. I will try to also post them in the chat here before we get started. Let's see if I can do that right now. So if you do not see the slides pop up in your chat, don't worry about it. Those will get sent out after. Okay, hold on one second. I have it open. They will get sent out after the webinar as well. So I'm going to pop them into the chat. You can grab them there, or you can keep an eye out for those getting sent out after we are done here today. All right, and just give me 1 minute. We'll get this open back up and we will get started. Okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's get this slideshow going. All right, excellent. And I'm going to make sure that my chat and my Q&A windows are open as well. So if you have any questions at any point in time, feel free to pop it into the chat or into the Q&A box, and I will just keep an eye on both of those for you. So as I mentioned, today's topic is on building your tax planning services within your practice. I really focus on the, let me see if I can, let's see. So I see you, Rich. Chat is disabled, but it looks like the Q&A box is working perfect. So if you have any questions, just pop those right into the Q&A box, and I will make sure that I keep an eye on that throughout the presentation. Caleb, I see your comment as well. The slide deck didn't come through the chat yet. If it doesn't come through, then don't worry. We will make sure that the slides are sent out after today's webinar. So if that doesn't come through, no worries. We will make sure that you get a copy, absolutely. And I will also put my contact information at the end. So if for some reason you still don't get them emailed after the webinar, you can feel free to reach out to me. For those of you who don't know me, or if this is your first Tax Talk, before I get into my introduction, just a reminder, the SOAR conference is coming up in just a couple of weeks here for Scaling New Heights. If you are not registered, there's a registration link right there. You can scan, you can check out the agenda. I will be there. So if you're not able to attend, but there are some topics that you are interested in hearing us report back on, things that you would like to see for content next month in Tax Practice News, please feel free to let me know, and we'll be happy to cover that for you. And as always, make sure that you subscribe to our newsletter so you never miss out. Not only will you get the announcements as to when the webinars and our free education sessions are, but you will also get our weekly newsletter, and we try to put out as much great content as we can for you there. So my name is Christine Gervais. I've been a licensed CPA for almost 15 years, been running my own practice since 2016. My practice has always been what I consider to be a smaller practice, meaning we have less than 100 employees. And so a lot of my content is focused on building and developing smaller practices. And that's going to be the focus here today is how to help build those consulting and planning lines of revenue from that smaller practice perspective. Okay. So why are we talking about offering more tax planning services to your clients? And what do I mean when I say tax planning and strategy as well? And so what I'm really talking about is that step beyond just providing your clients with vouchers for their estimated tax payments, right? So that happens kind of automatically. You're preparing a return, those vouchers will come out as part of the return. We pass them off to our clients. But what I'm talking about is something that's really a hands-on service during the year. So you're in more constant communication with your clients when you're providing what I consider to be a more hard and fast tax planning or consulting service. You're really signing up to have a schedule with them where you're looking at things throughout the year and you're being more proactive about helping them to understand what their tax liability is going to look like, understand strategy for reducing their tax liability that they might not be taking advantage of. It could be a whole host of different things depending on what your client is looking for, but it really is, a little bit more of a holistic relationship throughout the year. So, reasons that we want to do this, and we'll get into challenges too, because I know they're there. But clients really want it. Not all of them. Maybe you do a lot of 1040s, and you've got 1040 clients that are pretty straightforward, and they don't necessarily need this or see the value in it as much. And we'll talk too about which clients really are a good fit for you to have these conversations with, but clients are really asking for more proactive service. I think the two top complaints that we get when we're talking to a prospective client and about why they might be leaving their current relationship is lack of communication and that they were not getting proactive services, like proactive planning services, meaning their CPA or the person preparing their tax return currently wasn't really involved in that ongoing conversation. Everything was very historical. And it's easy for us, of course, as practitioners to fall into that. When you're building a practice around, I'm only talking to somebody once a year to prepare their return. So this is really going to be a little bit more forward thinking. And like I said, that ongoing relationship building aspect. So it is going to promote closer relationships with your clients because you are going to be in communication with them more frequently. And I think you'll find you become a more um, intrinsic part of their, maybe their personal financial planning or even their business financial planning as well. So it can make you more efficient during tax season. And I know it's always hard to look at things from the perspective of like, well, we're doing more work or we're adding more services. So, how are we possibly becoming more efficient? But tax planning done really well is going to set you up for better success during tax season in that you will have more of your information before we even get to January 1st. And you're going to have a heads up on things that you might otherwise not want to find out last minute, like oh, by the way, the client bought 5 brand new fixed assets that we need to talk about depreciating and things like that. That's a way that you can really start to gather that information during the year and not having to be surprised during busy season. And then, of course, when we do it well, the idea here is that we're adding to our bottom line, right? That we're setting this up in a way that we're able to add to our profit of our practice by providing this extra service or this value add service. And so we're going to talk about how to set you up for success for that also to make sure that this really is a profitable endeavor for you. So, what are some of the challenges? And we'll talk about overcoming these as well. So consulting services can be really time consuming. This isn't something that you can necessarily, run through an algorithm. Some of it we can. And I do have some tips at the end as to how to automate this, how to implement technology. But this can be really time consuming because it really requires your attention. You're having to have conversations with your clients, you're having to analyze data. So there really is that extra time piece. And that can be concerning for people where, like, we already have a lot of tight time in our practice. So how are we going to potentially add this service and still make sure that we have enough time to go around with all of our projects? Michael, I did see you raise your hand. If you want to just pop your question right into the Q&A box for me, I will be happy to answer it for you. So there's liability concerns here too. Most professional liability insurance is going to cover consulting services and things like that, but you want to be super careful and make sure that you are in fact covered to provide services. You also really want to make sure that you or any staff that might be providing these services is really understanding of the language that you should and you shouldn't be using when we're talking to clients about consulting and strategy. It's not, thanks, Michael, no worries. It's not as straightforward as just, something that's black and white, cut and dry, right or wrong. You are oftentimes going to be asked questions that might have answers that are in a gray space, if you will, or require some research or require some more information to really answer the client's questions well. And so we want to be really careful about language that we use that are absolutes. I actually was just taking ethics CPE yesterday, tax focused ethics CPE yesterday. And I think one of the great examples that they gave is they were talking about, oh, well, a client emails you and asks you if they're eligible for a like kind exchange on a sale of a piece of property. And so a great example of making sure that we're careful with our language is that you wouldn't want to just fire off an email and say, oh, yep, if you fit these criteria, it's eligible for a like kind exchange. That's a little bit too absolute without us doing some due diligence to really dive into the client's specific situation, understand the facts of the case before we are providing something, especially in writing. So things to just kind of keep in mind and make sure that you and your staff are well trained on, that a lot of this is conversation, it's research, it's data analyses, and making sure that we're understanding all of the information before issuing any type of opinion on what would be a recommendation for the client in terms of their tax planning or their strategy. So that leads us into, it is a specialized service. You might find yourselves feeling like you don't necessarily have a good, strong team of people that can offer these services because it is something that we really are probably going to rely on more experienced staff to provide. You want people who have some years of experience, who are comfortable having conversations with the clients, who are comfortable saying things in those conversations like, I don't know the answer to that question, but let me do some research and get back to you. So that can be a challenge, as well as making sure that you have enough qualified people to really serve your tax planning clients well. And then we'll also talk about pricing these services, because I really I believe, after years of failing forward in my own practice and kind of doing this what I would consider to be, we won't call it the wrong way, we'll just call it the less efficient way, that to really do this in a way that is beneficial for your organization, it's not something that I recommend that you just charge people hourly for. And I'll get into the details of why I don't think that that's necessarily helpful to you or to your clients and what your alternative options are. Okay. So, ways to implement this in your practice. If you're not currently offering a line of service for tax planning and consulting, or maybe you're kind of doing it a little bit ad hoc at clients' request, but you've never really promoted it or advertised it, here are some things that you can do to kind of determine what are the best next steps for you. Is this something that I want to jump in on? So, you want to assess your client base for need and fit, first of all. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you can't bring in new clients for this service line, but I always think if we're going to add or expand services, the best place to start is your existing client base. So you want to look at, who are you preparing tax returns for? And is this client base one that could really benefit from some additional tax planning services, some additional guidance throughout the year? And I will have in just a minute the kind of the client, the ideal client for tax planning services to help you look at your current client base and decide, is there enough need here based off of what my client demographics are. You want to determine who in your practice can provide these services. So we just talked about that. Do you have enough of a knowledge base to be able to implement these services and have your clients be well served? Do you have enough staff with free time to be able to do that? And then the structure of your pricing appropriately. So again, I really don't believe that doing this hourly is in anybody's best interest. So we want to have a discussion about making sure that we're setting you up for success from the get-go in terms of determining how you're going to price these services. And then you are going to obviously want to implement as much automation and technology into this process as possible. There is this human layer of needing to have these conversations, needing to assess the data available to you, needing to be creative and thinking outside the box to give your clients the best tax planning service. But as much as we can provide information, as much as we can analyze information using technology, those are things that we absolutely want to look at, because the less that you have to do manually, the more you're going to be able to free up your time to focus on the most important part of this process, which is really just having a conversation with your clients. So, what is the ideal client for this service? High net worth individuals. This doesn't necessarily need to be like millionaires and billionaires. I've found that, a couple with two kids that's making, over $400,000 a year is definitely a high net worth enough individual that they're going to benefit from some tax planning conversations to try to help them figure out, how can we save more, keep more of our money in a compliant way. Clients with one or more businesses. So this could look any type of different way. These could be sole proprietors that have Schedule C businesses. These could be clients that are invested in partnerships, S corps, and they have some of that business income flowing through to their tax return. Clients with investment income, so significant amounts of interest, dividends, capital gains, etc. Clients facing multiple types of taxes. So you could have a married couple that has passive income, self-employment income, W-2 income. Like they've kind of got this, mix and match of like where their income is coming from. And so that makes their tax structure a little bit challenging in that we have to look at how each different type of income is going to be taxed. And so that creates some advantage in terms of strategy, because you've got these multiple different pieces. I actually always say that the more complex a return is, the easier it is to do tax planning for. And that's because when you've got that many moving parts, you have more opportunity and options in terms of helping them to save money. It's really hard with a client that just comes to you with a W-2 and says, how do I save on my tax dollars? Clients that are closer to retirement age, so they definitely need some tax planning consulting services. You don't necessarily know how much have they saved for retirement. Is it really in the right vehicle for them? Is their tax bracket going to go down when they retire? Does it make sense for them to be doing some Roth conversions? So those are great clients to be having some of these conversations with. And then, of course, any of your clients that have children. So talking to them about college savings, talking to them about tuition credits or childcare credits, things that are available to them that they might not necessarily know about, and how to save tax dollars by saving for their children's education in the future. All of that creates an opportunity for you to come in and be a really high value advisor to these people, because they all have an opportunity here to keep more of their hard earned money in their pocket. And that's certainly going to make for happy clients. So this isn't an end all be all list, but if you are going to assess your current client base, this is a really great place to start. It's generic enough that you should be able to find some individuals on your current tax return prep list that would meet these categories and be great clients to have a conversation with. So talking about pricing structure, I really believe that the first three are great options, and as I already mentioned, don't offer this as an hourly service. So I will tell you why. When I first started my practice, I did everything on an hourly basis. That was just the way that I was taught how to do it in public accounting 100 years ago when I got out of school, where we track everything in 15-minute increments and bill the client for it. But I have found that particularly with this type of service, what you're really looking for is for your client to be as proactive with you as you are with them, meaning that in order for you to be a really great consultant and provide really great tax planning advice, they need to tell you what's going on more closely to the as it's happening as opposed to after it has happened. So if a client is going to go buy a big brand new fixed asset, if a client's going to make the decision to start a defined benefit plan instead of a 401k, like you want to be involved in those conversations in order for you to really provide value to them when it comes to tax planning. So, planning means prior to the decisions actually happening and being executed. And if you're constantly charging them hourly for them to come to you for advice, they're not going to come to you as much as you would really ideally like them to. They're going to make decisions on their own and tell you after the fact because they're afraid to get a bill for every single time that they call you. So I think that providing either a flat fee subscription model or a tiered option is all great options to give to your clients that will promote that back and forth conversation because they know that they're not going to get billed every single time they send an email or pick up the phone. They are more likely to ask you before making those decisions. And that's where your value can really come through. So a flat fee would be something simple like, if you want to add tax planning service, it's $3,000 a year or it whatever price feels right based off of how much time you think it's going to take you. But that would be an example so that the client knows exactly what they're getting and what they're paying for. Our firm follows more of a subscription model, and that's where we have a smaller flat monthly fee that the clients pay throughout the year for so many tax planning calls and so many projection calculations. And on those calls is where we have a lot of the discussions around should we be an S Corp instead of a partnership, or should we be contributing to a retirement plan, or should we be doing this? Tiered options also you could use that tiered option with flat fees or a subscription model. It would just be that you would provide multiple tiers to be more budget friendly and a better fit for different size clients. For example, a smaller tier client might be just a husband and wife with a couple of kids. Maybe they have a pretty significant income, but they don't have any business income. There's not a separate business tax return. We're just looking to kind of help them make some tax savings decisions, maybe some education savings decisions. Whereas you could have, kind of like that small, medium, and large tier service where you're saying, okay, well, if you've got two businesses that we need to run projections on and then flow that pass through income to your personal tax return and then look at your personal tax return planning, things like that, maybe you're in a higher tier. And so you could still apply that to a subscription model or even a flat fee where you're still charging a flat amount per year or a flat amount per month, but maybe you just kind of have everybody in different buckets based off of what's the best fit. So that's some options for you to think about. I do still kind of loosely base this off of how many hours I think are going to be involved. And like anything else where you do a flat fee type structure, there's months where I definitely do more work for clients and there's months where I definitely do less work for clients. And so it kind of evens itself out in terms of my time. But I have found that that really does promote that back and forth conversation. Clients come to us a lot more frequently and we're able to provide them a lot more value because we're helping them to make those decisions as they're happening, as opposed to having to help them undo something after the fact. So technology tools that will help you. I love Tax Planner Pro. It connects to both QuickBooks and Xero. So it will run real-time projections for you based off of your client's most recent financial statements. So rather than you having to try to create a manual projection from financial statements, this software will do it for you. You can also bring in your tax returns from the prior year. It will pull out pertinent information from the tax return and it will build a beautiful report that you can send to your client. I don't know if they pronounce it Holistiplan. I think it's Holistiplan, and Corvi. Very, very similar to Tax Planner Pro. So both of those kind of work the same way, where they have an OCR feature that basically reads the prior year tax return, pulls out pertinent information like, is your client married? How many dependents do they have? And it really analyzes that in conjunction with the most recent financial information. And all three of those will spit out a report that you can actually provide to your client. So one of the things that I think is great about a nice report that you can provide to your client, and you'll have some clients that care and some that don't, but it's a deliverable. I think that with services like this, where it's not a hard and fast product that they're paying for, that it can sometimes be a little bit more challenging to sell clients on the value of what they're getting, because you don't necessarily know in any tax planning conversation how much money you're going to save them at the end of the year by having that one conversation. But giving them a product that actually points out, if you contributed to a 401k plan, then you would save X dollars. So that's something that those reports typically include. Does Tax Planner Pro integrate with is UltraTax? I am not 100% certain. So even with my tax software, I don't use UltraTax, we use Pro Series, but even with ours, it basically reads off of the PDFs of the return. I think it does link directly with some softwares, but I don't know the answer to that one specifically. You are absolutely welcome. But yeah, it does do a PDF read as well. So even if there's no direct link with the tax software, most of them will PDF read off of the return itself, which is helpful. I have found that pre-scheduling your tax planning calls is also a really great way to provide a good value in this service. So setting something up like Calendly or HubSpot, where you kind of have predetermined weeks of the year that you're providing these calls or services. So, we're coming up on the end of the second quarter. We've already sent our tax planning schedule out to our tax planning clients and said, here's a link where you can schedule a call for the, second or third week of July. Once you have your Q2 information available to you, and they go ahead and schedule the call, they can send all of their information to us in advance. We remind them of that. And so that kind of just automates that communication and presets those times on my calendar to make sure that every single quarter we're actually providing the service that we said that we were going to. You can also automate text emails, reminders. So great things to do, just automated emails and text reminders to your clients when estimated tax payments are due or when it's time to schedule a call with you. So I think that even just that little bit of oversight to remind clients, like, hey, we're paying attention to this for you. We want to have a conversation with you during the year because we know it's important to really be proactive with you and make sure that you have these answers as things are happening throughout the year. Those extra touches go a long way in terms of providing value and helping the clients to feel like they're really getting their money's worth. So I will pause for just a minute and see if there's any questions. We have about 2 minutes left. We didn't have a lot during the presentation. Feel free to post those right up in the Q&A. And next steps for you. So I would, if you're not already providing these services and you're looking to actually build this out as a whole new service line, I would for sure recommend maybe forming a little committee or picking someone to be kind of your point person. That person can be responsible for assessing your existing client list first and determining, who are the first people that we're going to reach out to? What are the tech tools that we're going to use? But having somebody that's really in charge of managing this will help to streamline the process for you as well. Make a list of clients that you are going to start with, clients based off of the demographics that we talked about today that would be a really good fit. And the reason I picked them, like I said, is because those clients are the ones that are most likely to actually save some tax dollars from having some of these conversations with you. And that is a much easier sell for you in terms of your value, is to be able to have them immediately see that savings. Determine your base pricing structure. So you are going to want to look at what makes the most sense for you. Are you going to do flat fee? Are you going to do subscription charges, monthly, quarterly? What does that look like? You want to have something ready to be able to present to your clients that you think is going to be a good fit for them, but is also going to be the right price point that your firm, like I said, is going to be adding profit to your bottom line, in spite of the fact that you're also adding time to these projects. And then demo some of these tech tools. I think the three that I mentioned are probably some of the better tax planning softwares out there, but I highly encourage everyone to, demo anything before you use it and really make sure it's going to be a good fit for your practice. And then let your clients know, especially clients that are not already taking advantage of these types of services. Do a newsletter, do an announcement, have one-on-one conversations with people to say, we're going through this process of identifying our clients that we think would really get some value from getting a more proactive conversation going during the year. We think you're a great fit. Are you interested in having that conversation? So as promised, this is my contact information. So if you ever have any questions about anything, please feel free to reach out to me. That QR code should also take you right to my contact information. And give me just 1 second. I'm going to try to pop this slideshow into the chat one more time. I just have to get the file closed first. We'll give it one more try. But if you are still looking for it, then we will make sure that it gets sent out to everyone as well. Okay, I'll give everybody just a second to see if you can grab that in the webinar chat. Again, thank you so much for being here. I don't see any more questions coming in, but always feel free to reach out to me. Hopefully this was a helpful topic for all of you, and we will see you next month on next month's Tax Talk. Have a great rest of your day.